What are we trying to build for our kids? What type of future are we intentionally trying to build? The little habits and the little things that we do on a daily basis turn into healthy habits and easy habits as we go through life. What are our kids inheriting? Some people think they're inheriting land or they're inheriting money, but they also are inheriting your routines. They're inheriting your mindset and your attitude. They're inheriting the relationship with food and what you're doing around your house. They're inheriting how you deal with stress. What's your emotional intelligence level? How are you communicating with people? Inheriting your faith. In all aspects of our lives, this is what our kids are inheriting.
Welcome to the Foundational Health Podcast, where we provide education and inspiration to help guide you on your journey to look better, feel better, and most importantly, heal better. I just finished interviewing my very good friend and colleague, Dr. Jerod Ochsendorf. Dr. Jerod and I used to work together as team chiropractors and wellness doctors with USA Wrestling, and we had so many incredible trips and memories. And now to see what he's doing is just amazing. He's doing some amazing things in the health freedom world with empowering individuals and communities to take action and fight for their health and faith freedom and educating people, not based on fear, as you'll learn in this conversation, but based on taking action and educating themselves. And so we talk a lot in this interview about the different things that he has coming up, with a webinar on raising healthy families in a toxic world and his upcoming Freedom Summit, which, as I mentioned in the podcast, I strongly encourage everybody to register for those, to attend. But I want to read something from Dr. Jerod that is pretty lengthy, honestly, for an opening to a podcast interview, but it's incredibly powerful and it resonates so well with my beliefs. And I think you'll understand after hearing this why Dr. Jerod and I are such great friends and why I am so honored to have him on my podcast. So here goes. Everything that I'm about to read is about his upcoming webinar. And that upcoming webinar, by the time this podcast airs, the live version is going to be gone, but you're going to have the evergreen version still out there. So the registration links that we'll provide will still work. Every parent wants the same thing: to watch their children grow into healthy, thriving adults. The question is, are we building that future intentionally or hoping it happens on its own? We want our children to grow up healthy. We want them to have energy, to enjoy life, to avoid unnecessary suffering, to have every opportunity to fulfill the purpose God has for them. The challenge is that raising healthy families today looks very different than it did even 20 years ago. Our world has changed. One realization completely changed the way I viewed parenting. Our children are watching us far more than they're listening to us. That's worth repeating. Our children are watching us far more than they're listening to us. They don't just inherit our eye color, they inherit our routines, our attitudes, our relationship with food, our response to stress, our priorities, our faith, our view of our bodies. Whether we realize it or not, we are writing their definition of normal every single day. That thought is both sobering and incredibly hopeful, because if today's habits help create today's results, tomorrow's habits can create tomorrow's future. Healthy families don't happen by accident. They're built on purpose and shaped by consistent leadership. Nobody is more invested in my family's health than I am. That isn't meant to create fear, it's meant to create ownership. As parents, we're the leaders of our homes, not just spiritually, not just financially, but physically too. Here are 5 lessons that completely change the way I lead my family. Number 1, kids follow what we do, not what we say. We can tell our children to eat vegetables all day, every day, but if they constantly see us grabbing fast food or snacking on junk, they'll remember our actions more than our words. Children imitate before they understand. Number 2, the pantry teaches just as much as the dinner table. Long before your kids can read nutrition labels, they're learning from what's consistently available in your home. Your kitchen quietly communicates your family's values every day. Number 3, the family calendar reveals your priorities. We schedule what matters: sports, work, school, appointments. What if we became just as intentional about family walks, shared meals, bedtime routines, and time to recharge? Healthy families don't find time, they make it. Number 4, every yes is also a no. Every decision shapes your family's future. When we say yes to another hour of scrolling, we may be saying no to a conversation or a walk with our kids. That one is also worth repeating. When we say yes to another hour of scrolling, we may be saying no to a conversation or a walk with our kids. When we say yes to convenience, we may be saying no to preparation. Leadership is often choosing what matters most over what's easiest. Number 5, your children are learning what normal looks like. This may be the biggest lesson of all. They're watching how you handle stress, how you eat, how you rest, how you move, how you care for your body. They're forming their definition of normal. One day they'll likely lead their own families based on what they're experienced in yours. That's why healthy families don't happen by accident. They're built through intentional leadership. The encouraging news: you don't have to be perfect. You simply have to be willing to lead, and every intentional choice you make today becomes part of the legacy your children carry tomorrow. Nobody is more invested in your family's health than you are. Not your doctor, not your pediatrician, certainly not the government, not even your favorite social media personality. That also isn't meant to create fear. It's meant to realize ownership. Doctors are valuable. Experts are helpful. But nobody will ever think about your children as much as you do. And once you accept that, you stop looking for someone else to take the lead. That's why parents have to lead. Now, here's the great news. You don't need a medical degree or perfect habits. You simply need a clear direction and the confidence to influence your family one decision at a time. Every family is different. There isn't a single formula that works for everybody. Healthy families aren't built by following every trend or trying to imitate someone else's lifestyle. They're built by parents who confidently lead the family God has entrusted to them. When you have a clear framework, you can make wise decisions that fit your values, your season of life, and your children's unique needs without constantly wondering if you're getting it wrong. It isn't about becoming a nutrition expert or an exercise expert. It's about becoming a confident influencer of your family. Have you ever noticed that some families seem to make healthy living look easy? The kids eat real food without a battle. They play outside. They enjoy being together. It's tempting to think, well, they're just lucky. Well, it's not just luck. It's intentional work. Over the years, we've noticed something almost every parent falls into: one of 6 parenting archetypes. Each one has unique strengths, each one has blind spots, and each one leaves clues. So here's the surprising part. You don't discover your parenting style by looking in the mirror. You discover it by looking at the fruit, your kids and your family culture. Just like a gardener doesn't judge the quality of a garden by how hard they worked in their garden, they judge it by what the garden produces. Parents are no different. Our children become the fruit of the culture we've created, not because we're perfect, not because they are perfect, but because children naturally grow inside of the environment we create. So here are those 6 parenting archetypes. Which one describes where you are currently at? Number 1, are you a legacy builder? I've intentionally created a healthy family culture. Number 2, are you a provider? I work hard to give my family the very best, but sometimes I'm so busy providing that I forget to intentionally shape our family culture. Number 3, are you a researcher? I've read the books, listened to the podcasts, I've saved the posts. I just struggle knowing what exactly to do next. Number 4, are you a wayfinder? I care deeply, but with so many conflicting opinions, I'm constantly wondering if I'm making the right decision. How do I know? Number 5, are you a firefighter? I focus on health when there is a problem to solve and not until. Number 6, are you an outsourcer? I don't fully trust myself yet, so I keep handing my family's health decisions to my medical doctor or someone else, but not me. Maybe you've become a firefighter. Health only becomes important when someone gets sick. Maybe you're the researcher. You know a tremendous amount, but struggle to know what to do next. Maybe you're the provider. You've worked incredibly hard to give your family the best, but haven't made it a priority to intentionally build the family culture you really want. Or maybe you're becoming a legacy builder. Not because you figured everything out, but because you've decided your family won't drift anymore. Here is the really good news. These aren't labels. They're all starting points. Every single legacy builder was once something else. And if it's important to you, you can also become a legacy builder by intentionally building the family culture you really want. I don't know about you, but when I read that, it absolutely gave me goosebumps. So this is why I do this podcast, because what Dr. Jerod wrote, what I just read, is what I want for all of my listeners. And now for my very important discussion with Dr. Jerod Ochsendorf, and I pray you enjoy this as much as I did. Dr. Jerod, my friend, welcome to the Foundational Health Podcast.
Hey, Kevin, thank you so much for having me today. And I look forward to a great conversation with you. I've been following your webinar and your podcast for a long time. I'm just blessed to be here with all the great speakers and all the great people that you've had on here. So looking forward to a great conversation today.
Yeah, me too. And, and especially just with our history, I think it goes, I don't even know when it goes back to, but what did we determine? Like 2010 was it when we both started working together? 2011, maybe with the USA wrestling team as team chiropractors.
And it probably even goes back further than that. I tell you the truth, Kevin, it probably goes back to like 2009, 2010 for sure, through all the Body by God, Max Living, everything else that we've been part of together. So it's been absolutely a blessing to get to know you, your families, and watch your kids grow up too.
Yeah, same here, man. And speaking of families, that's what I would love to talk about today. So I know you, at the time of this recording, in a few days, you have a live webinar, Raising Healthy Families in a Toxic World, which is such an important topic right now. But this is going to air after that. But the cool thing is that webinar is going to be evergreen. So we're going to have links to that in our show notes, where at any time, people can reference that webinar, they can still register for it and watch it. And that's what we're going to focus on today, as well as the amazing event that you're putting on this September up in Alexandria, Minnesota, the Freedom Summit. So lots of great things to talk about.
Yeah, it's going to be an amazing conversation today. Talking about the raising healthy families in a toxic world, it's absolutely incredible, right? Because the rules have changed, from our grandparents, our great grandparents, to where we are today. The rules have changed on how to actually bring up a healthy family. And that's one of the big things that we're going to be talking about in our webinar moving forward. So kind of where would you like to start to dig in? How would you like to start today with, bringing the best information to your audience?
Well, my thought was this. So as I was explaining to Colton, the man behind the scenes here, that what I love about, you have the 3-part emails that came out promoting your webinar. And what I love about it is it's not just what I talk about on my podcast all the time, which is eat better food and exercise more. It's not just that, but a huge part of all of those emails is the mindset shift that goes into things. And it gives parents, I think, more to think about and focus on, instead of I've got to do all of this with my food. I've got to do, we've got to change these habits. But instead, it's just if you change your mindset, the way that you look at things, all of that becomes not easy, but it becomes easier.
And that's a huge thing, right? Because we have to look at, what are we trying to build for our kids? What type of future are we intentionally trying to build? And like you said, it's not easy, but the little habits and the little things that we do on a daily basis turn into healthy habits and easy habits as we go through life. And so that's all about kind of what we bring. And ultimately, I think what you try to teach with your family as well is, how intentional are we being on a daily basis to bring kind of that change and that, that realization of, where do we want to be as a parent, and what do we want to leave as potentially a legacy for our kids, our grandkids, or our great grandkids some days. And so, one of the big things that we always start off with is, you're absolutely right, is what are our kids inheriting, right? So it might be, some people think they're inheriting land, or they're inheriting money, or they're inheriting this, but they also are inheriting your routines. They're inheriting your mindset. They're inheriting your attitude. They're inheriting the relationship with food and what you're doing around your house. They're inheriting how you deal with stress. What's your emotional intelligence level? How are you communicating with people? They're inheriting your faith, right? And in all aspects of our lives, this is what our kids are inheriting. So it's not just your land, your house, your money. It's not just that. Your kids are literally inheriting many, many different things along the life and the life course that you share with your children.
Absolutely. So powerful. And that's what I loved. Like, you had in that one email was the 5 lessons that completely changed the way I lead my family. Lead being the key word there. And that's one of the things I pound into people on the podcast. I end every podcast with reminding people that they are a leader and to lead by example. And that's exactly what point number 1 was that you had of the lessons that completely changed your life, is kids follow what we do, not what we say.
Yeah, and that's a huge thing, right? So whether we wake up in the morning and we are just sitting around doing nothing, we're scrolling on YouTube, we're scrolling on Facebook or Instagram, or whether we're actually getting up and being intentional with our mornings, doing our morning readings, doing our morning maybe Bible study, maybe it's our quiet time, maybe it's taking a walk. Again, this is a time for you to start showing your children, what do we do in the morning to prepare for our day, to win the day, right? So with my boys, I have 2 boys, they're 13 and 11, Kellen and Eli. And, we talk about, how do you win the day, right? Not how are we going to lose the day, but how are we going to be successful today? How are we going to win the day? And it ultimately starts in our mornings. Every single morning we prepare for like a battle, right? Because your day, I don't want to say that your day is a wrestling of chaos and you're wrestling and it's a big battle, but in reality, life is not always easy, right? And so trying to prepare, especially young men, on how to be knights, right? We talk about, how are you going to be a shining knight for your girlfriend, for your wife someday? How are you going to be an amazing servant to your community, to your family? How do we win these days and win these opportunities to be the best man that we can be, the best that God has given us to be in the moment that we are? And so that's kind of how we start our morning, is a little bit of quiet time, some reading time, a great breakfast. And then we show them, like my wife and I, we were out walking this morning, and we were out walking the dog and doing our healthy things and trying to get into these healthy routines right away from the get-go.
Yeah, that is so awesome. And those little things, you just can't underestimate how powerful they are, because it's not just you, again, saying it like, hey, kids, this is what you should be doing, and then you doing the opposite. It's you saying it, but then actually leading by example, and they get to see you doing it every day. And that seeing you do it is so much more powerful. I mean, you can tell them all day long, like, you need to eat vegetables, you need to eat healthier. And then if you're sitting around watching TV with a bag of Doritos in your lap, it probably isn't going to mean a whole lot to them how many times you tell them to eat vegetables.
100%. And so, leading by example, I love that, because again, lots of parents we're telling our kids, hey, you need to do this habit, you need to do this thing, you need to do whatever it may be. But kids are watching you. They're modeling you. They're going to do everything that you're doing because they want to be like mom and dad, right? And so It comes right down to all of our intentional things that we're doing. So whether it's our food that we're eating, or the walks that we're taking, or even how we're communicating with our spouses, right? So if you're having fights and you're yelling and screaming, well, guess what they're going to do back to you, because they think that that's normal communication, right? And so if we can show them what normal is and what normal should be versus what we see in our reality and around TV today that's so false and so fake, and everything else that they're promoting out there, it's absolutely ridiculous. We need to show our kids like what a normal family is again, and get back to those family roots.
Part of our mission at Foundational Health is researching and partnering with wellness products that we trust. Our one-stop health shop is loaded with brands that we not only have extensively researched, but also trust and use ourselves. You can find everything from low EMF, red light therapy devices, grounding mats and sheets, non-toxic mattresses, saunas that help you detox faster without toxifying you, the best water and air filtration systems on the market, high-quality supplements and foods, exercise and fitness products, our favorite books, and so much more. Go to foundationalhealth365.com, click on Health Shop, and you'll find the links to countless products that you can not only trust, but also many that we have discounts set up just for you. Now let's get back to the podcast. Okay, so the second lesson that you had listed that completely changed the way that you lead your family was the pantry teaches just as much as the dinner table. So explain that one to us a little bit.
Oh, that's great. That's a good one. I love this one because yes, we can prepare all the great things to put on our dinner table, but what are kids doing on the outside when they're hungry? What are they reaching for snacks? What are they reaching for in the interims when we don't have those healthy meals? And so making sure that your pantry is set and ready to go for like a quote unquote fast food meal or a fast food snack. Again, whatever you're putting in front of your kids, that's what they're going to reach for. That's what they're going to grab, especially when we don't have time to sit down and prepare a meal for them or prepare a snack for them. We want to make sure that they have the most nutritious things possible that they can get into their life. And so whether it's things, in the refrigerator or even in the pantry, like we talked about, are you making healthy bars? Do you have healthy snacks? Do you have healthier organic, not sprayed, not GMO, things that your kids can be putting in to help their cells and their body is actually thrive the way that they're designed to. Again, whatever we're putting in, I always talk to my kids, they're athletes. One of my little guys is a hockey player. So I'm like, dude, if you're going to be putting in like diesel fuel into he loves cars. And so I'm like, if you put diesel fuel into this Ferrari, what's the Ferrari going to do, right? It's not going to perform. It's not going to act. It's going to be, broken down very, very quickly versus if you put high octane rocket fuel in this thing, it's going to be going. And so using analogies with kids, things that they can assimilate with, is really a great way to talk with them as well. And then having those healthy things readily on hand so that, again, you're building them and teaching them the ways that they should be shopping as they kind of get out of your house as well. Again, all those habits, what do you have around you? What's in your house? That's what your kids will have in their house someday as well. And so we're pretty intentional on showing our kids like, this is what we eat. This is what we do. This is how you grab healthy snacks and fast when you're in a hurry because life's chaotic sometimes. So what can we be doing to make sure that they're putting those healthy things in?
And it's so cool, and I'm sure you see this with your kids too, but it's so cool to be able to see those things not only like get applied in your kids' lives, but like one of the things that actually David Erb, so Dr. David Erb, who I know is going to be one of your speakers at your Freedom Summit coming up in September, at a conference, probably 16, 17 years ago, 5 years before I even had kids, him and his wife, Kimberly, put together this incredible thing on parenting and like writing down what you want your future kids, like what do you want them to get out of their life? What do you want to pass on to them to leave that legacy? And for our family, one of those things is reminding our kids on a daily basis that they are leaders. That their friends are watching what they do. So they get the opportunity every single day to be a leader, to not just fit into the crowd and eat the Doritos and drink the Coke because that's what their friends are doing. Not to make their friends feel bad for it, but when the opportunity arises to be a leader. And so one of those things that popped into my head as you were talking about this, like we always remind our kids that fruit is God's candy. Amen. And so now we get to see sometimes like when their friends are over and they recently had like a box of Nerds and, my kids are pounding down berries and they were having a discussion like, have you ever had like blueberries literally taste like candy, like they're God's candy. And it's so cool to see those things get played out and those seeds that, we've been planting for our entire kids' lives, how they actually listen because it's not just what we say, it's also what we do.
Yeah, it makes you feel proud as a dad. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, it absolutely does. So the third thing that you talked about with the lessons that completely changed the way you lead your family. This one was really good for me. So we're really big on calendars in our family. Sarah and I have a shared Google Calendar, and then for the sake of the podcast, I'll call it the Big Butt Calendar. It has a different name for it, but It's this calendar that is 4 foot by 6 foot, I believe, that we have on a wall in our house, and it's for the whole year. So we got everything spelled out on there. But we don't put on there a lot of times those little things, which after reading your email, I really want to do. So you said that the family calendar reveals your priorities. Explain that to us.
And so the things that we're doing in our lives, whatever we're going to stay busy with, whatever we feel that are intentional, they're going to reveal the family priorities. And so one of the big things that we talk about in our family a lot is our vision and mission statement, right? How are we going to serve? How are we going to live to God's given potential and give back to the people that God puts in our lives every single day? So how do we just continue to express the light of Jesus to everybody around us? And so when we look at our values and we look at our mission statement, we want to make sure that our calendar is filling with those things. And so again, if our priorities are, yes, we have sports. Yes, we have family time. Yes, we have vacation time. Yes, we have, meetings and things that we have to go to. But we make sure that those things that go on our calendar align with our mission and vision statement of our family. But also, again, how are we being intentional to actually raise our kids and do the things that we want them to be doing someday as well? And so the things that are on your calendar, again, should reflect a lot of what the vision and mission statement of your family is. And again, where do you want your kids and your family to go to leave that legacy that we've always been talking about?
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And like I said, that's going to be something that changes on our calendar because we've got all the big stuff, which, a lot of it is really great. Like you mentioned, the vacations and the other big things, but starting to add some of those little things and incorporating that more is going to be a powerful change for my family.
And the calendar too, Kevin, the calendar can also it can be monthly, it can be weekly, but it also can be daily. And if you remember back like a long time ago, and we're dating ourselves right now, right? But 16, 17 years ago, we always talked about building a war plan in our lives, right? And that war plan is kind of like your calendar. Those are your priorities. Those are the things that, don't change and are very consistent. And so again, we're only given so many minutes and so many seconds and so many days and hours on the face of this earth. What are we doing with it, right? And where do we want to be? If you want to be somewhere, you want to own a lot of real estate like in a year, well, great. How are you working towards that every single day? If that's your vision and that's your mission and that's your priority of your family. If you want your kids to be, amazing servants or grow up to be missionaries someday, well, how are you working today to make sure that your kids are getting there next week, a month from now, 6 months from now, or a year from now? And again, you build those habits into your daily calendars, your weekly calendars, your monthly calendars, quarterly or even yearly calendars. Those are the things that we use quite a bit in our house.
Okay, number 4. This is also really, really good one. They're all good. Every yes is also a no.
So this one's a powerful one. And when you really think about it, it kind of confuses people at first. But again, when you have a mission statement and a vision statement for your family, which I would encourage every single family out there, person out there watching, to sit down with their spouse and sit down with their kids and just divide and decide and kind of design a vision statement, but also a mission statement for your family that fits and reflects your values. The reason for this is because when you say yes, you're turning down the things that might be pulling you away from your mission and your vision in your lives. And so it's very easy to say yes, but it's also very easy to say no at that time, because if it doesn't align with your values, your priorities, or where you want to go with your mission and vision statement, then you want to say no to that, because now it's just pulling you away. It's deterring you. It's taking you away from those things that are supposed to be important in your life. And so if you can stay congruent with your mission, your vision, and your values, it's easy to say yes to those things. And it's even easier to say no to the things that are going to pull you away from it.
Yeah. And what I loved also is, like you said, like, okay, yeah, if you're saying yes to sitting on the couch and doing another hour of what I call doom scrolling. Yes. If you're doing another hour of doom scrolling, you're saying yes to that. And at the same time, you're saying no to having a meaningful conversation with your child. Like if you're a parent and that doesn't like just make your gut churn and like get you right there, then I don't know. I don't want to sound judgmental, but there might be something wrong with you, because those meaningful conversations, I mean, your kids are only young once, and pretty soon they're going to be out of the house. And so saying no to scrolling, saying yes to the conversation, so huge.
Yep. And it's, yes to that walk, and, no to the extra time you're doing something else. And so again, when we have kids in our lives, it's super important to make sure that we're intentional so that they're coming to the point where we want them to be, right? And growing to the person that we want them to be. And so if you say no to them, right, and they're trying to have a conversation with you, or they're trying to walk along life with you, and you say no to that, well, now they're learning that it's more important to be scrolling on Facebook or Instagram. It's more important to be on our phones and on tablets than it is to actually have meaningful conversations with people around us. So it's not just your kids, but it's also maybe your spouse. Maybe it's a friend or a family. I mean, there's many times that we go out to eat. I'm sure you do the same thing, Kevin, is when you're out in a restaurant and you look around and everybody's on their phone, right? And
oh my gosh, yeah.
We're actually saying yes to our phone in that conversation, and we're saying no to the relationship that's sitting in front of us that God has given us. And so that's one of the major things that we talk about in our house. And my kids don't have even phones yet, right? We don't have we have tablets, and we have some of those things that we use for school, but they don't have cell phones. They don't have smartwatches. They don't have those things because, again, we prioritize conversation. We prioritize our family more than we prioritize those other things. I mean, I was growing, and we all look back at our age, and people say, well, how do you do that without a phone these days? And these kids, they need to be picked up. I'm like, well, how did my parents do it? How did their parents do it?
Yeah, exactly right.
It's like, they don't need a phone. They don't need those things. And so, it's one of those things where, like, what are we prioritizing and what are we saying yes to? Even those small little details make a big difference in a child's life.
Absolutely, they do. And then number 5, and I think we probably hit on this a little bit, with every one of these that we talked about, but your children are learning what normal looks like.
Yeah, normal's not chaos, right? Normal's not the news. It's not Fox News or CNN. It's not any of those things. That's not normal. Normal is family. Normal is peace. Normal is love and joy and gratitude. Normal is healthy relationships with people. Normal is learning how to communicate, even in times of disaster, even in times of chaos, even in times of anger or hate or whatever may be that's coming out. Like, how do we learn to communicate in those proper places, not only to respect the other side, respect the other person, not be judgmental, but also hold your values, hold your morals, and hold your ground when you do not necessarily get along with somebody or get along with maybe their opinion or maybe their views. We're respectful of them, but we don't have to like them, and we don't necessarily have to follow along with them, but we're very respectful of people and of the things that are kind of in and around us. And so those are definitely the things that we want to be instilling into our kids and into their lives on a daily basis.
Yeah, such a huge lesson, especially right now in this, political turmoil climate that we all live in, that, whether you're left or right, and if you are left, then you can't interact or have conversations with people on the right, and vice versa. And it's really so silly. And that is also something that we talk about with our kids on a regular basis. And we have our political views in our house, just like everybody else does, but we don't let that interfere with friendships. Amen. And actually, like, part of what you just said there the other day, one of my kids, and I don't even remember which one it was, but said something about, well, you don't even like them. And I'm like, you're right. I don't actually. I do not like them as a person. And it was a particular person, but I still love them. They're still one of God's children, and I still love them. But it doesn't mean I have to like them. It doesn't mean I have to like their actions. And it doesn't mean I have to spend time with them, but I still love and I still respect them.
Amen.
And I think those are powerful lessons, incredibly powerful lessons to teach our kids, as opposed to, I disagree with them, therefore I hate them, and whatever else is taught out there, all the social media divide and mainstream media divide that they try to instill in our minds on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's just, it's rhetoric, right? And it's ultimately just kind of indoctrination. It's not allowing our kids to actually think for themselves and have emotional, I guess, content within their own brains, emotional smartness, emotional intelligence. as they go through their conversations with their peers or with adults. And now you're starting to see more and more lash out, more and more things, happening with young kids towards adults or to parents or to teachers. And again, where does it start? And, I always say, if a kid is acting out, like what's going on in their life, what's going on in their family,
Yes.
how is their family acting? How is their parents acting, their dad acting, their mom acting? Because again, kids are modeling. And if we don't like the behavior, sometimes we have to take that hard look in the mirror and go, what's going on in our life and what are our kids reflecting right now?
Yep. And that's where it takes that serious, honest look and then becoming intentional, which is so huge. One of my favorite words. In fact, it's the fifth principle of foundational health is be intentional. When it comes to improving your health, you've heard me say many times, test, don't guess. Well, I'm excited to announce that here at Foundational Health, we can help you do just that. Introducing the Foundational Health Blueprint, a very simple at-home lab test and natural wellness program giving you a complete look at your energy pathways, nutrition, stress and mood, the impact of toxic buildup, gut health, and more. If you're looking for one lab test to give you a clear picture of your overall wellness, this is the one. With this test and personalized guidance from our team, you'll have the education and inspiration you need to look better, feel better, and heal better. Go to foundationalhealth365.com, click on lab testing, and order your Foundational Health Blueprint today. Okay, so we don't have to dive into every one of these. We absolutely can if you want. I'll kind of leave it up to you. The parenting archetypes. So you list out 6 parenting archetypes, and this is something that I had really never heard before. For me, when I read this, the one that jumped out at me and that Sarah and I strive to be every single day is a legacy builder. And in fact, this is kind of silly, some people think. For me, it's incredibly powerful. But I have a 5-minute recording of myself that I listen to on the way to work every single day with my daily affirmations, my favorite sayings, things that are powerful to me, my favorite Bible verses, things that I want to accomplish in life. And one of those is to leave a legacy of generational health, wealth, and love. And so when I saw these 6 parenting archetypes and I saw the legacy builder, I'm like, yeah, that is exactly what I'm striving for every single day.
Amen to that. And people are going to learn about these 6 archetypes at the webinar. So if you miss our webinar on next Tuesday, July 28th, you can always join us at any Tuesday night. And we're going to have this thing like evergreen, like Dr. Kevin was talking about earlier. But the 6 are, we're going to talk about the researcher, the outsourcer, the provider, right? The firefighter, the wayfinder, and ultimately the legacy builder. And we always ask, like, what type of archetype are you currently doing as a parent, and where do you want to go, right? Because these archetypes aren't set in stone. It's not like this is what you're doing as even your personality types, right? They can shift and drift with maybe a season or a moment in your life. And these are great things to strive for. And I love the one that you bring up because I think that every parent out there really wants to strive to be a legacy builder. They might not be in that aspect right now. They might be a firefighter right now, and they're actually growing to be a legacy builder. And that's where they want to get later in life, in the life stages. And so, what does it mean to be a legacy builder, right? And a legacy builder, there's a couple things. Is one, you want to lead with purpose, right? We want to be taking those actions, steps to really lead our families, lead them with purpose. And again, that all reflects back to your mission and vision statements that you have as a family and as adult. You want to build a healthy family culture. And culture just doesn't happen. Culture happens from simple little habits that we're doing on a daily basis. So again, those healthy habits, those little tiny monotonous things that we're hounding our children for every single day will turn into the miraculous things in their life later. The monotony leads to the miraculous. And then ultimately you get to see some amazing miracles that happen because of those continued conversations, those daily conversations that people are having to create that natural culture. Those habits then build rhythms and traditions, right? So it's all about doing these healthy habits that build natural rhythms that aren't chaotic, but they're harmonizing, they're joy and love and things that are really happening with your family, that are building that cultural aspect of things that you want to see as you kind of get into your 70s, your 80s, your 90s, or potentially even your 100s someday. Where are we going? What type of rhythms and traditions do you want to see happening in your family? And ultimately, those habits also start having healthy choices, right? And then they become not only healthy choices that might be a little bit of a struggle in the beginning. So we got to teach you how to make these healthy choices, these small, healthy little choices, because let's face it, you're not going to change your family in a day. And if you do, it's going to be mass chaos and it's going to be like World War III that takes place. Yeah. And so we want to build each day as a little brick. And then as we do these natural, healthy choices, they turn into natural, healthy choices as well. And so choices become natural choices later in life, and they're not a struggle. So yes, we have to be consciously aware of making those choices in the beginning, but then they become almost subconsciously easier choices as we go, through life. And then ultimately, this type of person thinks generationally. We're not just thinking about today, we're thinking about multi-generational down the road. So what does it look like not only for my kids, but what does it look like for their kids or their kids, right? I mean, there's many things that come into building this legacy type of builder. What are some blind spots, right? That's ultimately we have to talk about too, because it sounds great. Like, hey, let's be a legacy builder and let's do these things and let's make these healthy choices. But the consistency of making these choices do come with some blind spots as well. The blind spots can be really focusing on building a future that we forget to celebrate today's progress. And so as you forget to celebrate like the progress of today, let's face it, we all like to have rewards. We all like to be that dopamine shot, that dopamine hit. And if we don't celebrate today's wins, this goes back to our earlier conversation in the podcast, Kevin, is how do we build for success with my boys every single day? How do we win the day? Well, at the end of the day, you celebrate those victories. And so we talk about the 3 things that you can accomplish in a day. So my kids have, 3 habits. Is it make their bed? Is it help with dishes? Is it mow a lawn? What do they need to do today to actually be successful? And when they do those things, we celebrate those wins. Now they don't get necessarily rewarded. Like we don't do necessarily chores and they get paid, because we want to teach them that that's natural. That's normal. That's what you do as a man in your house to serve your wife, to serve your family. Those are the things you do. And you don't expect to get paid for that. Your pay is a hug from your wife, love, gratitude. Your pay is food on the table. Those are the things that you're learning because of the natural things and the natural choices and the habits that you should be doing as a man in your life. So you have to celebrate the victories of today to make sure that you keep motivated in that. And that's a huge blind spot that many people fail to do with themselves or with their children. Some people don't feel worthy, right? Because they're carrying around shame, they're carrying around guilt, they're carrying around skeletons in their closets, and they don't think that they're worthy enough to really receive these things. And I want people to know out there that, you're God's child. You're God's, amazing prince or queen, and you're a princess, right, of the kingdom. And you deserve everything that a prince or a princess should actually have, your royalty, right? And so we want to make sure that we're celebrating those things every single day of our lives. And we have to talk about, so how do we get there? What are core shifts that make you a legacy builder, right? And then so this is where we have to have a core shift of how do we keep building? Right? So you hit a plateau, you maybe hit a goal, right? But how do you build from that goal? So we're going to be talking a lot about that at our webinar, and just talking about how do you continue to celebrate progress in your life, because these are core shifts that need to take place. Remember, you're literally leaving a legacy for your kids and your families that last, right? It's not something that you're leaving a legacy just for tomorrow and it fades away. We want to leave something that lasts for many, many years, if not generations upon generations to come. And so that's kind of the legacy builder, is just really building in those aspects of life to be that type of person.
Yeah, I can't even tell you how much I love that. That's so powerful. And how amazing to be able to get that dopamine hit from something real, from parents encouraging you, focusing on winning the day, celebrating those little victories through communication, instead of the dopamine hit that comes from, oh, I got a ding for another Facebook like, or I got a ding on whatever it is, Instagram, TikTok. And sadly, that is where most people are getting those dopamine hits every single day. To have it be real conversation, encouragement from your parents based on something that you did. And I love the part that you said, like, that because this is also something we incorporate with our kids. They don't get an allowance. They don't get money for doing the dishes, for making meals. I mean, my 10-year-old daughter made my wife and I dinner last night,
Amen.
And she didn't ask for anything for it. She just knows that is part of being in the Schultz family. That's something you do. And then we also talk about how, that's going to make you a great wife someday. And that's not stereotypical. It's
right.
Also, we have those same conversations with my son who helps make meals. It's going to make you a great husband someday. So those intentional conversations, I just think there's not enough of them, and they aren't given enough power, which is why I encourage everybody to get on that webinar so you can start creating intention with your life, with your kids, being an intentional parent, which is going to lead to that legacy of whatever you want it to be. For me, it's generational health, wealth, and love. Nutridyne is my number one choice for the vast majority of my family supplements. I'm a huge fan of nearly everyone taking what I call the foundational 4 supplements: a multivitamin, a spore-based probiotic, omega-3 fish oil, and vitamin D3 with K2. The large majority of people are deficient in many of these nutrients, and they are the building blocks to gut health, immune system strength, brain health, heart health, and every other aspect of your health. Don't fall into the trap of chasing symptoms with supplements, and instead start to rebuild your health with the foundational 4. We partnered with Nutridyne so that you can save 15% on every order, and not just with the foundational 4, but all of your other supplements as well. Go to foundationalhealth365.com. Click on Shop Brands and then Nutridyne, set up your account, and you're all set to automatically get 15% off all orders. Now let's get back to the Foundational Health Podcast. So let's shift gears here a little bit and talk about the Freedom Summit. Before you dive into that, I'll just say this. It's been going on how many years now?
8 years. Since 2018 was our first one.
So Sarah and I, my wife, had great intentions of coming to the Freedom Summit 8 years ago, and we didn't. And then 7 years ago, and we didn't. And we finally made it last year. We had all these excuses of why we couldn't go, and didn't work out in our schedule, our calendar. So last year, we finally made it a priority. We went up there, and I think we were like 5 minutes into it, and we're like, why did we not come to this before? It was, and I say this not because you're on the podcast. I tell this to everybody. I texted my brother and countless friends while I was there last year. And I said, I have been to literally hundreds of seminars in my life, hundreds of conferences. And that I can say without a doubt was the most powerful weekend of my life. So tell us about it. How did it start? What's this year going to look like? Some of the speakers. I know we're going to be there again. We're doing the VIP dinner. We're going to be at the entire event on Saturday, September 26th, and we're crazy excited about it.
Matt, well, first of all, thank you for those kind words. And I'm glad you and your wife really enjoyed the summit. And that's ultimately what we try to do, is try to build an amazing, again, what are we looking at to build a family culture to protect that family unit? And so that's first and foremost that we really try to build our summit around is strengthening the family unit, protecting the family unit, making sure that parents are empowered to make great decisions for their families. And so whether they choose to lean one way or another way on a topic, that's not for me to judge. All it is for us to give content, give knowledge. Knowledge is power, right? And so now they have true informed consent around certain decisions. And so whether those decisions are to vaccinate or not vaccinate, maybe those decisions are to eat organic food versus not eat organic food. Maybe those decisions are to be more aware of maybe geoengineering and spraying of our air. Maybe it's the chemicals in our water. Maybe it's the poison in our food supply, right? These are all things that we continue to talk about and make people more aware of those toxins in and around our environment that are literally stripping away life from our bodies. And so we started this event, Kevin, like I said, 8 years ago. It was a straight up vaccine awareness event is what we built. And so, as a chiropractor, I would continually to see, kids come into our office that were, quote unquote, vaccine injured that our parents were telling us. And I'm sure you've seen it in your office. We've seen it in our office. I'm sure a lot of other people watching this have seen it. Maybe there's people that are vaccine injured that are listening to this right now. But we wanted to build a awareness event that was giving informed consent. So teaching them not only what the medical community was teaching them, but bringing in professionals around the world that were reading inserts of the vaccines, showing pictures, testimonials, different things that would be associated with a vaccine injury, and then ultimately giving them resources. Where can they go? What can they do if this happens? And God forbid, if it did happen, what are your resources and how do you take care of your kids, your family, or yourself if you're in that situation? And so that was our first event. It was Mary Tocco. It was Del Bigtree, and it was Dr. Bob Zajac. And so we had an amazing day, an amazing event. 1,500 people, 2,000 people filled the venue here in Alexandria. And it was absolutely incredible. Moms with children to grandparents that wanted to learn, why are their children making certain decisions that they're making? So it was empowering to see that generational gap and that generational bridge at the same time so that parents can understand where kids today and why they're making decisions that they're making. More and more families are becoming more towards the sign of natural health, natural healing. We're seeing the shift take place right in front of us. It's absolutely incredible. The younger generation of today wants more organic food. They want clean water. They want clean air. They're more on that side of green than ever before. And so giving them resources and empowering them to help make those decisions is ultimately where we're at. It shifted and molded a little bit from vaccines, and it shifted and molded right around COVID to more of our constitutional rights. When we start seeing our rights be taken away, can't go into grocery stores, you can't do certain things unless you wear a mask or you have a vaccine, you need a vaccine this or a vaccine card to do that or whatever it may be, right? Those were things that really just didn't sit right with me, with my values, with what I teach my kids or our family values, or even the things that we try to empower into patients coming into offices that we're associated with. These are things that really kind of just shifted me. And we were like, okay, it's much greater than just talking about vaccine consent. It's much greater than just, the suppression of our rights and not allowing us to do things and wear a mask, and all the detrimental effects that now we're seeing came from that on the children that had to do that, the ones that were stripped away from the rights from going to school or whatever, made the fear that is still in these kids. And we're starting to see more anxiety, more depression coming out in the last few generations of kids that actually went through that 2020 experiment because of COVID. And so we brought in national speakers on how do we protect our human rights? How do we protect our constitutional rights? The importance of making relationships with your sheriff in your community and the power that sheriff has. We've talked more about the COVID vaccine and the research and spike proteins and all those things that are really, continuing to cause more problems in our lives and in our cells. And ultimately, how do we continue to detox them? And so we have a great resource, a great library. If somebody wants to check that out, it's at wellnessmyway.org. That's where they're going to find a lot of those resources and a lot of the old content that we still have archived that people can continue to get involved in and see. And so this year, it's another great lineup. We have Del Bigtree coming back. We have Sherry Tenpenny coming in. We have people like Toby Rogers, who spoke at Congress about vaccines and vaccine injuries coming. We have Joel Bohemier, Dr. Joel from down in Naples, Florida, coming up to talk about raising healthy families the natural way. We have Bob Zajac, our natural pediatrician here in Minnesota, that reaches out and talks about the medical profession and ultimately, the downfalls of what he sees as a practicing pediatrician here in the state of Minnesota. So lots of amazing people that are going to be coming. Stephanie Lind is another one that just popped in my brain. She's going to be talking about a lot about the infertility crisis that we have in the United States right now, and ultimately the depopulation that's going on within our world, and not just in the United States. We have potentially a guy from London coming over to talk about Muslim and Sharia law and the things that are happening in England right now that are potentially coming to the United States, the vaccine passports, the digital IDs and things that we need to be aware of. We have Twyla Braze coming. She's an amazing, amazing person that stands out against digital ID and ultimately HIPAA, privacy, things that we thought that HIPAA protected us against, but actually what are the hidden agendas under HIPAA might be something that, a lot of people want to see and want to connect with and want to get in touch with. So we have another amazing lineup this year, super powerful a lineup that we're going to be having here in Alexandria, Minnesota.
Wow, that sounds absolutely incredible. Even more excited to be there now. And I recently had, when I was talking to somebody about this event, and they made the comment like, oh, like this is a right-wing Maha event. And I'm like, no, it's not. Absolutely, we're for the Maha movement because, whether you're right wing, left wing, hopefully everybody's in favor of make America healthy again.
Amen to that.
They asked the question like, well, who wouldn't want to come to this event? And I said, well, somebody that thinks mainstream media is telling you the truth. And then somebody that is dependent on the government for keeping them healthy, and trusts the government and doesn't have an open mind to listen to the possibility that those things might not be true. Those are the people that shouldn't come to the event. But for somebody that wants to learn, somebody that wants to keep an open mind, whether it might not be something they agree with right now, that is why I believe this event is nearly for every single person on the planet, because it's protecting our health freedoms, it's protecting our faith freedoms, and it's doing that from a grassroots effort, not through fear, but through education. And that was the part that I loved about the message last year. Not one single speaker got on the stage with the intention of scaring you because of all of the awful things that are going on in the world. Yes, pointing some of those things out, but then it was, here are your actionable takeaways, things that you can do, whether you feel like your call is to fight for advocacy at a government level, or whether it is just strictly for your family and your community. But it was, as I said, the most powerful event that I have ever been to, and I have no doubt this year is going to be even better.
Yeah, we're working on a couple other speakers as well right now, mostly just legislative type of people that will bring information about what's to come in Minnesota. And so even if we have people that travel from all over the country to come in. Well, last year we streamed it, and I think there was 42 countries around the world that were involved, and I think that there was maybe 50 states. I believe we had all 50 states, someone from at least all 50 states like tuning in. And so it's definitely grown into a pretty powerful event. Some of the other speakers that we're going to be looking at is Dr. Nanda, she's from Texas, and she's a ophthalmologist, and she's going to be talking about just how the spike proteins and how things are actually affecting your cornea, your vision, your eyes. Something that, a lot of people weren't aware of. A lot of people that followed the old COVID vaccine and the old spike protein, they always thought it was cardiovascular, right? How it affects like our heart and how it's affecting a lot of our tissue and a lot of our veins and the clotting that was potentially happening because of obviously the COVID vaccine. Dr. Nanda brings it to a different level about how it affects your brain, your eyes, and how do we start detoxing, right? And how do we start getting these spike proteins out of us? I'm currently in the process of working on bringing a guy from the company's called Zero Spike. But this is a spike protein, company that's from kind of Europe. And what they're doing is they're formulating ways to actually test the amount of spike proteins that are in your body. And so again, if spike proteins are a huge issue, well, how do we know if we have them? What's the level and the load that we have? And then ultimately, how do we get rid of them? And so we're going to be talking a lot about that aspect of health and healing at our event as well. And so there's many different things that we have to be aware of as consumers. Some people are, again, worried about the air that we're breathing and the geoengineering that's happening. Some people are worried about the vaccines. Some people are worried about the 5G soon turning into 6G. Like, what is that doing to our cells and what is that doing to our body? Different frequencies, different things that are in and around us on a daily basis, those chemicals, those toxins, those pesticides, those herbicides, what are they currently doing? And ultimately, what are they causing, not only in us as adults, but our children or potentially your great-grandchildren? Because there's a lot of things that we're taking in today that will be passed on fetal cord blood wise to kids generations from now. And so there's many things that we need to talk about and ultimately preserving, just human nature and human rights and ultimately continue to populate our amazing world. And how do we keep it as clean as we possibly can at the same time?
In closing, well, first of all, I just want to encourage every single person that's listening to this to not only register for the webinar, but to join my wife and I at the Freedom Summit in Alexandria, Minnesota, Saturday, September 26th. We're, of course, going to have the links in our show notes for the webinar as well as the Freedom Summit. We'll do social media posts about those as well to get the word out. But I not only encourage you to get on those as far as registering for both of those, getting your tickets for the event, but to also share this hugely important discussion with anybody and everybody you know. And then let's try to create communities that are intentional, that are trying to leave a legacy. So develop those accountability partners, those friends that are like-minded, bring them to the event with you, and let's just make this even bigger and better and make this world a better place with every single action that we do every day.
Amen. And I just appreciate your time. I appreciate your listeners listening today. Hopefully they got some value out of it, and ultimately they start just raising up some healthy families and strong families for our communities, because we need it. Awesome.
Guarantee they got value. I got value. Thanks, man. Greatly appreciate your time, Dr. Jerod.
Thank you, Doc Kevin.
All right. Have a blessed day.
You too, sir.
Thank you for listening to the Foundational Health Podcast. As always, if you would like to learn more about making health your hobby, visit our website at foundationalhealth365.com and follow me on Facebook at Kevin Schultz, DC, Foundational Health.